In a year full of firsts, I'm proud to be sitting in this chair hosting the first fall 2020 episode of VU Sports Wired. Not only is this the first episode of the school year, but obviously, it is the first ever virtual episode of VU Sports Wired, Vanderbilt Video Productions' premier Vanderbilt sports talk show. I'm Simon Gibbs, joined today by Justin Hershey and Bobby Kent. Before we begin, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Grayson Liptack, who is virtually editing our show this semester as we're doing it over Zoom. And now, without further ado, we've got a packed show talking Week 1 Vanderbilt football as they went to play Texas A&M last week, and they've got LSU this upcoming week. Just when you thought this year couldn't get any more bizarre, Vanderbilt, a team with a true freshman quarterback, 2 new coordinators, patchwork offensive line, injuries, opt-outs, and talented players are graduating. Vanderbilt went into College Station, faced the 10th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies, and they almost won the game. They ended up falling just short of the huge upset victory, which would have been Derek Mason's first upset win over an AP top 10 team since he arrived at Vanderbilt. They ended up losing just 17-12. Starting with Justin. Justin, what did you think? What were your takeaways from this game that Vanderbilt was just so close to pulling off the upset in?
Yeah, I've got a lot of takeaways. The first one would be wow, because I did not really expect such a great showing from the Commodores, but they were incredibly impressive on both sides of the ball. I think it obviously starts with Ken Seals, but the defense was as good as advertised, and we're going to get into it a little more as we go here, but the loss of Dimitri Moore in that game definitely cost the Commodores quite a few missed tackles that we'll allude to later in the show, but you got to be impressed. And I said it the other day, if you're not optimistic after that game, in terms of if you're a Commodore fan, then your expectations are far too high.
I agree with Justin. I was very impressed. I loved the determination and the grit that the Commodores showed in Week 1. It was a much closer game than many of us would have expected. And I also loved Ken Seals' comment after the game of, this is not the same Vanderbilt that people have played in the past. This is a new team with, as you mentioned, Simon, with new coordinators, and they have a different mindset. I was really impressed with Ken Seals' poise and his ability to lead the offense and get the weapons involved. And I was also really impressed with the defense and the returning starters. All 11 from last year were able to take command, and for a group that allowed around 36 points per game last year, it was a big step up, and I'm really impressed.
And Bobby, you talk about how Ken Seals said this isn't the same Vanderbilt team that, they've rolled out in years past. He's a huge reason why. Right now they have a franchise quarterback, or I guess a quarterback of the future for college football. And he didn't have a perfect game. He went 20 for 29 with 150 yards, threw a great touchdown, but also threw 2 interceptions, made some rookie mistakes, showed some promise. Guys, what did you like from Ken Seals, and how do you think he could grow moving forward?
I think the main thing I liked was, we'll talk more about Fitch's offense as we go here, but Todd Fitch's new up-tempo offense, I thought Ken Seals ran to perfection. I think to run an offense that's heavy on option plays, heavy on run-pass options, that was super impressive to me that he was able to grasp all that in just a couple months being here at Vanderbilt. In terms of Ken himself, one thing that I noticed was that he was super poised. I think we can all agree he hung in there against some pressure. He rolled out tremendously to both sides, his right and his left, and threw some balls that were just perfectly placed where no other person could have touched that ball, specifically, obviously, the touchdown to Abdur Rahman in the corner of the end zone. So I was super impressed with his poise. His technique was great, and I think there's no doubting that he's going to be Vanderbilt's future quarterback for quite a few years now.
I completely agree. I was very impressed with his poise, not to mention in a first start against SEC competition, being sort of thrown to the wolves right away. And he was able to keep the offense moving and made attempts to push the ball downfield, something that we did not see from Commodore quarterbacks last season. And I thought this was really telling. His first completion, when he rifled the ball in there on a third down for a first down, I saw that as impressive awareness from the young quarterback to know the rush was coming. They mentioned that on the broadcast too. They said that not a lot of young quarterbacks understand that you have to get the ball out quickly on that type of situation, and he did, which is a really encouraging sign. I only think that he'll get better as the season goes on, and I can't wait for them to open up the playbook more for him.
Yeah, you guys talk about poise. Ken Seals obviously showed poise. And in fact, he was just the third true freshman quarterback to start a season opener for an SEC team since 1972. I mean, that does not happen very often. And it certainly doesn't happen very often when the true freshman quarterback actually exceeds expectations, which he certainly did, in my opinion, against a Texas A&M team that certainly was the favorite and certainly was expected to come out and beat Vanderbilt by far more than they did. I mean, the point spread was 31.5 points, and they came out barely beating Vanderbilt by 5. But guys, one thing that neither of you mentioned that really stood out to me about Ken Seals is he was just as advertised. We knew he could throw. We knew he would be, this leader on the field. But what I honestly didn't consider was his mobility. Because I kept vouching for Mike Wright, one of the more versatile, dual threat, mobile quarterbacks on this Vanderbilt roster, because I didn't think the offensive line would be able to hold itself up like it did in this game. But Ken Seals can run, and he proved that in the game as he kept moving, kept throwing on the run. This is something we never saw last year, with the exception of one half of Mo Hassan football. We never saw any quarterback throw the ball on the run, and if they did, it was certainly an interception. And in fact, I haven't seen a quarterback throw on the run since I got to Vanderbilt because Kyle Shermer was about as fast as a snail. So Ken Seals kept rolling out of the pocket. It just kept working. Is this a testament to Seals, or is this more of a testament to our new offensive coordinator, Todd Fitch?
I think it's both, to be honest with you, but I think it only works because Seals can do it. I think it's a very underrated aspect of his game. Simon, we've talked about it before. The kid rushed for 500 yards and a handful of touchdowns his senior year of high school. And that's an element that Fitch is really playing into, and that's really great to see because I think Mason said it after the game. He felt like that game was a great use of all their personnel. And I think that's part of their personnel is Seals' ability to be a bit of a dual threat. And I think the only way that Fitch can run some of those RPOs, some of those option plays is if Seals is willing to tuck it and run. And we definitely saw him do that. There was a moment, I believe, late in the fourth quarter when he extended a drive. It was third or fourth quarter. He extended the drive with a big 8-yard pickup on second or third down. And that's just huge for his confidence and for this team to manufacture offense like that. And it keeps the defense moving. I think with a young offensive line, you've got to keep the defense on their toes, and it limits the amount of one-on-one matchups that Commodore offensive linemen have to take on.
I give credit, like Justin said, to both. I think you have to be able to have that ability to throw accurately well on the run. We even see NFL quarterbacks sometimes struggle with that, but he did that pretty well. And I think also you have to give credit to Fitch too for recognizing that ability that Ken Seals has and being able to use it in game. And he really allowed for Ken to sort of avoid the rush and make plays downfield or sort of set guys in motion in the way that they could exploit different areas of the field. So I give credit to both sides.
One part of this game that was absolutely Fitch's doing, no argument about this, is finally, for the first time in a year, Vanderbilt had a formidable offensive game plan. They were moving the ball. It was up-tempo. They ran read options. It was just everything we didn't see with Jerry Godowski running this offense. Jerry Godowski's offense was a lot of first down rushes, second down rushes, and third down heaves, which almost always didn't work. Talk to me about what you guys saw in this offense and why you're excited for Todd Fitch to, keep going, growing this Vanderbilt offense in his first year on the job.
I think as we've already talked about, it starts with the quarterback. Godowski was not working with too much last year. I think we can all agree on that. But his ability to maximize everyone, I think sticks out to me the most. And just his ability to spread it out. Vanderbilt ran 38 run plays, 29 pass. That's a great differential. He used Javion Marlowe in some really good ways in the read option game. And I think Commodore fans were really impressed with what a healthy Javion Marlowe can really bring to this offense. And you got to remember that Keon Brooks was out. That's another element to this offense that Fitch is going to continue to play with and experiment with. So the spread out nature of it, the up tempo, and not a consistent up tempo, but in every once in a while catch you off guard off tempo. I thought that was a great use of those play calls.
Speaking of play calls, I really look to that first drive. It's a great example of how Todd Fitch's offense is going to run. It was a really nice mix of plays. It was a good mix of pass and also establishing the run to allow Ken to sort of allow him to settle into the game, which is really important for a young quarterback. I also really loved the call on 4th and 2 and the play action. It was just a simple play. There was nothing that was overcomplicated about it. And like I said, even players and even coaches and the professionals, decide to overcomplicate that. And he made that simple, and it worked out really well. And I also think that he'll continue to, we'll see the ball be spread out to more players, as the weeks go on. I think getting Cam Johnson involved is something that he'll look to do. And I think Abdur Rahman was really great and with 5 catches for 72 yards. And I think that as long as Vanderbilt continues to establish the run and can allow for play action and then shots downfield, this offense will continue to be exciting to watch.
And Todd Fitch is not the only new coordinator on West End this year. Ted Roof takes over as defensive coordinator after leading a top 25 Appalachian State defense last year. In Ted Roof's first game, this defense, in my opinion, was excellent. And I think most people agree, at least on the defensive line, that they were excellent. Dio Dangbo and Andre Mintz were a problem last week. Texas A&M had no answer, and Kellen Mond was really rushed through his plays almost every single snap. And we even saw the defensive line named to Pro Football Focus's #1 defensive line of the week in the entire Power 5. I mean, that is not something anyone predicted. And on top of that, Mintz was even named to Pro Football Focus's first team all college football this week after a gutsy performance against Texas A&M. What did you like from this defense, and particularly this defensive line in their first week against Texas A&M?
It all starts with the D-line, but I think it's really encouraging to see that this defense was as effective as it was, because that is the strong suit of this team coming into the year. That is where the experience lies, and that's where the all-SEC potential lies as well with, as you said, Simon Mintz and Deo. And they did exactly their job, right? They're trying to get to the quarterback. They collapsed the pocket super well. But what was actually very different than years past, they forced 3 turnovers. And that's really been a struggle point for Vanderbilt defenses in the past, whether it be through interceptions or fumbles. And those turnovers were huge. Davion Davis, I thought, was really, really impressive. Obviously, some missed tackles were big in this game, particularly what comes to mind is the beginning of the second half, the long run for Spiller. But you got to keep in mind that Dimitri Moore was not out there, and a lot of those tackles will be swallowed up when he's back. But I thought you saw tremendous depth in the secondary and really good pressure from the defensive line.
I agree. I think you have to 100% be encouraged by that performance. Holding A&M, a top 10 team in the country, to 17 points is no easy feat. I think also the effort plays were there all night. Dio had one play, I remember, where he ran all the way from the backfield across the field to make a tackle. And that is the kind of plays that I feel like we didn't see very much last year, especially when the team started losing a number of games and sort of lost, I guess you could say, all hope. But I was really impressed. And I thought Donovan Kaufman, freshman, making his first start at safety, held down the back end really well. I thought that they had Kellen Mond's number all night long, except for a few of those plays where they were sort of broken plays that allowed for easy touchdowns. But I was really impressed with this unit, and it was great to see a unit that Derek Mason talked about so much and praised so much during training camp really step up and sort of be the leaders, for this team. And I hope they continue to do that going forward.
Yeah, Kellen Mond is a 4-year starter, and Texas A&M, whether they deserved it or not, they were ranked in the top 10. It's hard to really have any complaints about a 17-point performance in which they forced 3 turnovers, 5 fumbles, right? There were 2 they didn't recover, and there were almost a couple interceptions mixed in. It's hard to be disappointed with this, but if you had to look at one weakness in this game, in my opinion, it would be the missed tackling, something that did bleed over a little bit from last year. Guys, how do they fix this moving forward, and how big an impact did the missed tackling have in their first loss against A&M?
Yeah, I'd go as far to argue that it almost lost them the game. I think when you look at the big chunk plays that Texas A&M had in that game, so many of them were from yards after contact. And that's something that Vanderbilt's got to clean up. And I'm confident they will. But like I said before, Dimitri Moore coming back is going to be huge. I think you saw Anthony Orji and his brother Alston Orji both step up in some good ways, but also both do not have a ton of experience. So I think those guys got some good, valuable minutes, but I think it's really Dimitri Moore in there who's going to swallow some of that up. And just working on some angles and really understanding how to bring those guys down, I think. And Kaufman looked great, as Bobby said. And he's going to continue to be a real weapon in the secondary. I'm really excited to watch his development, but definitely the missed tackling does need to be cleaned up.
I agree. I think with an experienced unit as Vanderbilt's defense is, I think they will, in film, they'll immediately be able to point that out and hold each other accountable for those mistakes and where they will we'll see improvements. I also want to sort of just pivot to another thing that I think decided the game, in that it was the missed opportunities to capitalize off those turnovers from the offense. I think there was a lot of times when Vanderbilt had the ball within the Texas A&M's 40-yard line and couldn't cash in. Those are type of things that I think will get better. But I think the defense clamping down on those missed tackles, allowing chunk yardage was a problem. Not allowing that to be an issue as it was last year too. And then the offense sort of capitalizing on those opportunities. I think we could have seen a different result. But I'm really optimistic looking forward.
This weekend, Vanderbilt hosts 20th ranked LSU. Second straight year they've hosted LSU thanks to the 2 additional intra-divisional games that the SEC added to each institution's slate this year. And LSU fell victim to Mississippi State and Coach Leach's air raid offense. Over 600 passing yards, was absolutely ballistic. But this is a much different LSU team than we saw last year, right? There's no Joe Burrow. There's no Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And frankly, Miles Brennan is not the same quarterback that Joe Burrow was. I personally like Vanderbilt's defense's chance in this game. But if Vanderbilt's going to win this game, at least one of the keys, in my opinion, would be something else Seals noted in the postgame press conference. And it's that he didn't really do an excellent job of diversifying targets on offense. He didn't really throw the ball to many other places other than Abdur-Rahman. And he's going to have to mix in every last playmaker if they want to beat this LSU defense. But guys, what do you think Vanderbilt needs to fix or do better in this week against LSU to potentially pull off what would be another huge upset?
I agree with you, Simon. I think getting more people involved on offense is key. And I'm going to start with Cam Johnson on that front. Todd Fish has to figure out a way to get him involved, whether it's some sort of gadget play, whether it's an end around, whether it's a bubble screen. That kid's got to get the ball because he's got big, huge play potential. But I think spreading the ball around is both on Fitch and Seals. Defensively, I agree. I think we can get some good pressure on the LSU quarterback, and I think that's going to be a good advantage that Vanderbilt will have. But certainly scoring and moving the ball down the field is going to be huge in this game, and seeing whether Keon Brooks and Dimitri Moore play. If those guys play, that's going to be another huge advantage for the Commodores.
I think I agree entirely, and I think the game plan will be another big factor. I think being able to take or build off of what you did in the game against Texas A&M and then expanding that and then, adding more nuances and wrinkles to the offense will only help, as LSU will have had a week to prepare for this game on film. And as well, they're going to need to get pressure on quarterback Miles Brennan. I know people started to mention that, his start, it's not Joe Burrow. It's not the same. He still had 2 touchdowns in that game, and he still shows that he can play at a high level in spurts. So Vanderbilt's defense is going to need to have a repeat performance in order to be successful. And I think it comes down to making smart decisions. I think also, Derek Mason's going to have to be smart with timeouts, because we did see some issue with that in the game. And just being smart on both sides of the ball and winning in all 3 phases of the game.
One thing I love about this matchup is after initially deciding that Vanderbilt wouldn't let any fans attend the game, they amended their decision to a much smarter yet more supportive cast for the Commodores as they take the field. At least in my opinion, they will allow a limited number of students to attend the game. And I think this is great because first and foremost, the students are tested weekly, right? They're contact traced, they're tested. We know that they're going to be safe. We know that they're going to socially distance and wear masks. And we know that they're not coming from another state, potentially bringing in the virus. So I think it's safe. And I think it's smart because I can't remember the last time a Vanderbilt football team played in a stadium with 60, 70, 80, 90% Vanderbilt fans. And this week, it's going to be 100% Vanderbilt fans. There may not be many, but there will be some. So I think that'll be a unique experience for the players. And I really do hope that the students show up to this game. I know the ticketing process can be a bit of a pain, but I hope that week 2 ends up better than week 1 for Vanderbilt.
I certainly got my ticket. I'll be there.
Tune in next week for a full recap and full breakdown of Vanderbilt's game against 20th ranked LSU. That's all we have in store for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alongside Justin Hershey and Bobby Kent, I'm Simon Gibbs, and we'll see you next week.